Assalamualaikum Bu Yan.
Waalaikumsalam Mas Didit, makasih.
Oke Bu, ini masih nunggu yang lain Bu.
Ya, nggak apa-apa. Mungkin nanti kalau Yana aja kalau ini dimasukin karena dia ininya. Dia
Yang yang mana Bu itunya Bu?
terus saya lihat ya, belum masuk. Memang belum ada. Nanti
Belum
nanti
ya.
kalau ada saya kasih tahu.
Oke Bu.
Soalnya dia ini moderator. Halo Isra. Isra.
Aí, oi, Ren.
Halo.
Halo.
Halo, assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Dari tadi dia nanya soalnya, belum buka.
Sudah jadi buka.
Cek.
Halo.
Cek. Mana backgroundmu, Pak Adi?
Belum aku sih sebentar. Iki aku pakai
Background
apa namanya? Pakai handphone. Bentar. Laptopnya masih pakai yang lain. Bentar. Nanti saya masuk lagi pakai laptop ya.
Oke.
Ada beban PT. Oh, wah, tak kira. Saya tadi anunya LIPI ya, Bu.
Apa?
Oh iya, LIPI itu Bu Ajeng Arumsari itu ngajak kerjasama loh buat apa namanya? Ini di grupnya dia itu juga ada grup remediasi dan apa namanya green
Teknologi.
Green Teknologi. Apa namanya LIPI. Bentar ya. Itunya di mana? Ada itu di mana, Bu? Ada background di mana?
Wak dosen.
Oh, juga dosen. Oh iya dah.
Yang putih.
Yang putih belum ya di wak dosen?
Enggak tahu ya. Kita yang putih apa yang biru?
Yang putih.
Yang terakhir vaksin ini loh.
Saya tak kirimi. Pak Adi berarti putih ya?
Dulu ini keliru zoom-nya sebentar ya.
Belum ada, Bu.
Saya tak kirimi. Dah, oke. Udah nyampe di WA.
Oh.
Hai Isra.
Hai.
How are you? Kak Kerungu.
Sahlan Isra.
How are you? Good morning.
Good afternoon here.
Is already noon here.
Where are you, Isra?
Yes, how are you?
I
am
can't
here.
see your face.
How are you? Inshallah, fine.
Yeah.
How's everything over there, Isra?
Alhamdulillah, fine.
Oh, great.
Kok
Is
bayang-bayang?
starting to cool. Is
What?
Winter.
Starting what?
Winter.
over there? The weather?
We have yes already starting second exam of this last year.
Already?
Not yet start the new semester. Yes, on October, inshallah.
So
Maybe
that
11 of October.
okay. So student already starting to came to university?
Already, we have from last semester, they come 2 days.
Okay. 2 days a week.
2 days a week, yes.
Oh,
Maybe this year, 3 days a week.
Oh,
Yes.
so everything getting better over there for in terms of COVID, in terms of pandemic.
Yes, most of people take the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, it's nice. Glad to hear that.
Not full time in university, online and mixed, online and offline.
Oh, okay.
Bu Harmin belum dibuka. Belum dimasukkan.
Bu, di mana Bu backgroundnya Bu?
Tak kirim di WA.
Ora ono.
Oh
iya. Foto nih. Oke. Saya switch ke handphone ke laptop ya Bu, mohon di accept. Allah kayak peserta 2000 peserta sih 34 gitu.
Iya ki apa iki? Wis
beli
di share kemana ke seluruh dunia raya, Indonesia raya sampai
kelasku sampai tak percepat tuh.
Nggak mau suruh masuk kelasmu.
Iya. Bentar ya.
Isra.
Yes.
Have you got vaccine?
Yes, sure.
Oh.
What?
Two doses. Pfizer.
Oh, Pfizer.
Mantap.
Hmm.
Oh, berapa dosen tak dengar? Pantas gak ono.
Halo, Dr. Isra. How are you?
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Hermin.
Waalaikumsalam.
Alhamdulillah, fine. How are you?
Pardon me, I cannot see your face.
My face, I don't know what happened to the camera.
Where are you?
Wait, I try to open and close.
Your face color is same with the background. Same as the color of your background.
Are you at home or
Maybe-
at-
No, I am at university.
at university?
Yes.
What time is it now there?
Now 8:45
Morning?
a.m.
Morning.
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 Yes,
Oh,
morning.
8:35.
Oh, ini Pak Adi.
4 hours between we and
Indonesia.
Iraq and Iraq. Yes. Maybe something in the background. I will sit now. I'm sitting. Yes, now, okay. Now good.
Yes. No background.
I remove the background.
Yes. So I can see your face. Miss you.
Yes, me too.
Adi masih wisuda itu backgroundnya.
Nggak dengar Pak Adi. Mute, mute.
Mute. Loh, kok gak keluar suara Pak Adi?
Ngomel mute, mute. Pak
Enggak,
Adi.
ini sudah unmute tapi nggak dengar suaranya.
Oh iya.
Nggak dengar suaranya.
Umi-umi tok Pak Adi.
Suaranya nggak ada, hilang.
Pak Adi umi-umi.
Halo, Mas Didit ya ini?
Halo.
Oh, gitu Pak Adi. Ya, Mas Didit ya ini. Oke.
Halo.
Ya, dengar Pak
Oke,
Adi.
ya, sip.
Ini belum masuk ya, Yana ya? Mas Didit.
Saya bilangin kalau udah, ini udah WA.
Ya, Yana pakai nama apa? Yana? Februriyana Dede.
Yana jam 6 pagi ya di sana ya?
Nggak tahu.
Kejam. Rasanya jam 6 pagi deh di sana.
Udah lulus loh, MSc.
Oh, MSc.
Masih Dian atau Buyan? Belanda posisinya terakhir ini.
Kemarin masih.
Jadi Belanda ya.
Oh, ini Februriyana. Wis.
Nah, sudah ada masuk.
Wait a second.
Udah tak admit.
Oh.
Thank you. Nah, ini.
Oh.
Halo, Yana.
Udah denger ya?
Kita Yana.
Halo Bu.
Halo.
Halo, selamat yo.
Selamat ya.
Jam berapa di sana, Yana?
Baru mau jam 8 ini Bu.
Oh, udah sarapan ya.
Sarapan.
Sudah.
Selamat ya Yana.
Ya, terima kasih banyak Pak. Terima kasih.
Iya. Terus udah lulus itu ngapain tuh? Ada wisuda apa? Hanya salaman tok, bye-bye gitu.
Kemarin udah Pak wisuda
wisuda.
minggu lalu.
Oh,
Pakai itu namanya.
Ada di Facebooknya Yana ya, itu ya. Saya lihat.
Iya betul.
Iya. Ini apa di mes asrama atau di mana?
Saya kebetulan ada nyewa kayak apartemen gitu Bu. Jadi kayak satu rumah share rame-rame sama sesama juga.
Ada kawan-kawan dari Indonesia kan?
Kebetulan ini kawan-kawan dari ini sih Bu, kayak international students di sini juga.
oh bagus kan kalau gitu. Yana di mana sih? Aku nggak update. Belanda di mana? Iya, apa di
Di IHE Pak ininya.
Oh iya,
Yana kan pindah atau Yana dari Praha ke mana kemarin?
Ceko.
Kemarin dari
Ceko ya.
ya terus ke sini ke Delft Terus habis itu saya pindah lagi ke Gen.
Oh,
Ke
iya,
Gen.
siapa supervisor?
Di IHS saya supervisornya Yan Willem, Pak. Kebetulan di bawah hydrology engineering kemarin.
Oh,
Engineering.
oh gitu. Anu ya, William ya. Di lab
Iya.
hidrolik ya.
Ketemu ini nggak?
Jadi anu
Widya?
belajarnya anu dong apa namanya? Tesis.
Ketemu Widya nggak? Sudah lulus ya Widya?
Ketemu juga. Sering main sama Widya.
Oh iya, loh, Widya sekarang masih di sana toh?
Masih Bu.
Kerja di
Widya
sana
masih.
atau lanjut sekolah?
Kerja di sini sekarang Widya.
Oh, Widya kerja di sana. Ketemu 2 tahun yang lalu sama Bu Bibi.
Iya.
Ya pas dari sana mau pulang itu ya.
Sempet
Masih
ini nginep
jalan-jalan.
semalam di hotel kita.
Oh, ini siapa? Putri Indi.
Oh, sudah pulang ini Bu. Tahun lalu sudah pulang.
Indi kan di Portugal ya? Bukan yang
Dia kemarin di Belanda di sini juga di Enschede. Jadi kemarin tuh saya, Widya, Indi semua sama-sama di Belanda.
Oh, oke. Ketemu anak-anak TL semua. Ini ada Dokter Isra dari Irak ini, Yana.
Hello, Dr. Isra.
Hello.
It's a
Assalamualaikum.
pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Pernah ketemu kan?
Me too.
Dulu? Iya, Yana.
Cuman
pernah ya?
tahu, tapi
Oh.
nggak sempat ketemu Bu.
Nggak enak ketemu ya, Yana sudah mau lulus itu ya. Ini belum ya, Prof Mus. So, saya ini aja ya, WA Prof ya, mungkin sudah dibuka, saya bilang aja dulu.
Bu Yan, ini saya boleh share langsung ke ini boleh nggak ya, JNTB ya? Apa namanya? Loh ini apa? Itu ada waiting room itu. Banyak 40 orang lebih loh waiting room.
Dimasukkan sekarang kah? Nunggu.
Oh ya nanti aja.
Ya,
Ini
kurang
aja,
dikit. Ya, kemarin yang daftar 95.
Terakhir 105, Bu.
Sudah 105 kan? Sudah suara Mas Didit alon banget. Iya, makasih Mas Didit.
Nah, kalau boleh tak ke ini ya, tak share ke apa itu?
Boleh Pak Adri, boleh.
Boleh.
Ya.
Berapa kuotanya? 500 ya?
500.
Oh, nggak beli yang 300 saja. Oh, beli ya nih? Enggak ya?
Kan Pak Ari itu katanya mau di-share ke instansi-instansi, jadinya terus kayaknya dikit kok yang 300 sama 750 ya?
Iya, terpaut dikit harganya.
100 sama berapa? 300 beda dikit.
Ya.
Aku beli 25.000 Bu, 300 kemarin tuh.
Kita beli berapa ya? Nggak tahu aku. Yang ngurus bukan aku.
Karena lali tak SPJ.
Ya, sampai kapan di Belanda?
Caranya sih ini kan lagi apply PhD kan Bu, lagi proses juga.
Mau langsung S3 ya?
Kalau nggak ya paling nggak mungkin nanti mau apply yang visa Zukiar itu Bu, jadi kayak stay di sini 1 tahun buat cari kerja kalau misalnya PhD-nya nggak dapat.
S3 langsung wis.
Kebetulan kemarin ditawarin dari supervisor ya buat topik yang sama Bu, jadi kayak langsung gitu.
UK aja. Di UK.
Di sini Pak, di sini saya dapatnya di TU Delft jadinya.
Oh, TU.
Ke TU.
Nah, tinggal ngayuh sepeda aja.
Yang bisa naik sepeda Pak Adi.
Ya nggak bisa yang gonceng. Nggak kebiasaan nih.
Nggak gonceng no.
Tapi kalau di sini biasanya pasti langsung bisa naik sepeda sih Bu, karena mau nggak mau harus naik sepeda kan Bu.
Saya kemarin waktu itu nggak dikasih pinjaman sepeda dari jalan kaki ke hotel itu 1 kilometer ya. Monggo. Ke belakang sana dekat kincir angin tuh.
Oh iya. Saya nih di daerah Molen dekat kincir angin itu sih Pak rumahnya.
Oh ya gitu. Oh kita. Ya lumayan itu kan sekiloan kan. Nah, jalan kaki tuh. Iya. Biasa. Bentar, saya makan siang dulu, Ibu.
Makan.
So, Yana sudah sarapan, saya belum makan siang. Bentar, saya sebarkan ke...
Itu sepertinya udah ada Pak Ari, Bu, di waiting room-nya.
Mana-mana?
Saya admit masuk ya, Bu, ya. Saya bisa juga.
Masukkan. Oh iya, ada Pak Ari. Oh, ini Profmu sudah ada. Tak masukin ya. Ting. Mushrifah. Bu Armin, ada Profmu, Bu Armin.
Ya, beliau kayak kapuslit begitu.
Hah?
Nah, ini
Kayak kapuslit.
halo, assalamualaikum.
Prof Mus.
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam.
Masih belum ada suaranya.
Ya, masih.
Masih di mute.
Ya. Ya ini. Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam, boleh dengar?
Bisa dengar, Prof?
Boleh dengar?
Boleh.
Boleh, okey, alright.
Terkeluar, Profesor.
Kok hilang?
Yana tahu juga terkeluar.
Nama itu belum ada yang masuk ini, belum ada yang masuk.
Terputus.
Masuk di mana ya, Pak? Nah, ini praktikum.
Loh, kok hilang Bu Armin?
Iya. Ini Prof, saya WA Prof.
Lihat di itu aja dulu. Lihat di apa waiting room. Jangan-jangan ada di waiting room.
Nggak ada.
Ternyata di Malaysia anu juga tulalit juga ya sinyal.
Nggak ono ya?
Di WA. Baik, Bu Yan ada WA.
Armin
Belum.
yang WA.
Ada terkendala pulsa. Kerasa lagi.
Kok pulsa ya? Bahasa Melayu apa ya?
Kredit. Top up, belum top up kredit. Kita dapat top up kredit daripada menteri. Pak Sarwoko belum masuk.
Emang ada Pak Sarwoko?
Saya WA ini. Tapi enggak tahu kok belum dibaca Prof.
Itu sudah kembali lagi.
Udah nggak ya?
Sudah kembali lagi di waiting room.
Oh, ada. Udah di
Dikasih anu aja Bu, dikasih host saja. Jadi dia tidak perlu masuk ke waiting room.
Oh iya, iya.
Co-host.
Siap.
Assalamualaikum. Di omah yo. No sound? Bu Yan ada sound?
ada. Nggak ada. Masih mute Prof Mus.
Di omah. Jaringannya kurang apik.
Halo, Profesor.
Mana jaringannya?
Mungkin sudah terdengar kok, Pak.
No? Yet?
Hello, Professor Mushrifah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear all of you, but very clearly.
Okay, thank you.
So you must be careful.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I think it's already 1 p.m. in Indonesia. We can
Okay.
invite.
It's 2 p.m. here in Kuala Lumpur.
And it's 8 a.m. now at my place here in Delft, the Netherlands.
Oh, it's early morning.
Yes, it's early morning.
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam. How are you, Isra?
Fine, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Dr. Hermin, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, Prof. I'm fine. Thank you.
Dr. Uzaimah dah masuk dah?
Belum ada, Prof.
Belum lagi.
Ya, ada Dr. Izzati.
Ya, ada di sini. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Prof akan join sebentar lagi.
Oke. Iya.
Bu Ipung ya, I'm submit to Ipung.
Prof Mus, ini ada kepala departemen kami, Dr. Ari Diparesa, masih muda.
Ya, assalamualaikum, Prof. Mus.
Waalaikumsalam.
Mus, I call you Prof. Mus. Prof. Mus ya.
Mushrifah.
Nice to meet you. Ya.
Gila, semuanya saya lihat semuanya everybody is very young. It's a young faculty.
Alhamdulillah. So are you? You're also very young.
Very young, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going into 70 now.
Yeah, you're still very young.
Dr. Ipung, where is your photo or your camera on? Dr. Ipung, can on your camera?
So what's the condition in there, Prof. Mushrifah?
Yeah.
The COVID.
Siap-siap.
The COVID still increase?
Pardon?
The COVID.
Oh, the COVID
coronavirus,
here.
Yeah.
Oh, corona in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So far, because UKM is close to in Selangor and close to Putrajaya, so we are quite safe right now. I don't have much problem with declining in the COVID cases, but the problem now arise in Sabah and Sarawak. So we have to control that area. So far here we are quite all right.
But the airport still open, isn't it?
The airport is open, but only for domestic flight.
Domestic flight.
But international flight only to certain places where the overseas airport accept us. In London, of course, Europe, of course, but not yet to Japan, not yet to Korea.
Including Indonesia, yeah.
Indonesia, not yet.
Yeah. Because Pak Adi wants to go there. He plans to go by ship.
What? Why me? Why?
By ship? You mean?
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
Ship is not safe. Submarine is better.
Ship it for legs.
Dr. Baby dengan Dr. Hamid and Ipung have been here for years and years and years. They've been here from I'm young until I'm old.
Oh, really?
Unfortunate that they have to leave because we want to keep them here.
Oh.
They told me they cannot make up contract with Indonesia.
Studinya
Oh,
kurang panjang berarti.
I'm talking to the boss, ya, so the boss marah nanti. Tak apa, satu hari nanti saya ambil juga. on sabbatical probably.
Ini udah boleh masuk semua, Ta?
Ya, bagaimana bisa dimulai ya?
Masukkan.
Yes.
Semua ya.
Yeah, okay. Now it's about 80. Oh no, not yet.
Well, since the head of the faculty is here, can I ask something?
Yeah, what do you need, Professor?
Namanya institut. Nama Institut Teknologi 10 November.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Oh, kenapa nak 10 November?
It's a University. Yeah.
Is a
Heritage of Indonesia. It's 10 of
okay.
Yeah.
Commemorate of a big war, war back in 1945.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nopember is November sebenarnya, ya?
Yes,
Yeah.
November.
10 November. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, unik ya. Institut Teknologi 10 November.
Yeah.
Very unique. Sebab selalunya kalau saya tengok Bank Rakyat, Bank Bank Bumi Putra, Kebangsaan, Universiti Kebangsaan, ini 10 November. Oh, sangat unik.
We actually in Indonesia we have 2 university using the name with date. Institut Teknologi 10 November and University of 11 Maret in 11 Maret, March.
Oh,
March.
11 March. Oh, okay. 11 March, which university was that?
In Surakarta, in Solo.
In Solo.
Yeah, Solo.
Okay.
Near Yogyakarta.
Oh, okay.
Is commemorate of big attack to Yogyakarta back in 1947, I think. Yeah, 11 March 1947. Serangan umum 11 Maret. Am I right, Dr. Hari? Am I right?
Huh? What?
You know, I'm benar ya, betul ya?
Yeah.
Pasti betul.
I introduce myself, Prof. Mushrifah. My name Adi. I'm a head of water technology laboratory in environmental engineering. I am finished my PhD in UTM.
UTM, okay.
Yeah, the same batch with baby Armin and Ipung, but they finished first. I'm a full student over there, so I mean, full student is finish your study in full time. 6 years.
Okay, right.
Because of many things happen.
Tapi the younger generation, they have a long scholarship, so they can finish their PhD in record time. In my time, they said 3.5 years PhD means you have to finish 3.5 years. If you cannot make, you have to come back.
Yes. Yeah, I have prolonged my study because during 2010 or 2011 is kelembaman economy in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Many factory closed down, and my research are related to factory, so I have to switch another.
Yeah.
Very hard.
During one time when I did my PhD in London, all the lecturers refused to read our thesis. They were on strike, so they were on strike for 6 months.
Oh, really?
So I mean after 6 months, I almost forgot what I wrote my thesis. It was quite a long time.
Yep. Right.
Professor, can we start the presentation?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Now, so we're still waiting for more participants to join, but I will start the lecture today. So welcome, everyone. My name is Februriyana Pirade. I'm a graduate master student in environmental technology and engineering from UCT Prague. I actually delve on University of Ghent, as well as a proud alumni of Environmental Engineering Department, Institut Teknologi 10 Nopember, Surabaya. And it's my greatest pleasure to welcome you all to the International Guest Lecture on Remediation of Polluted Water and Soil and its Management. So today's lecture is held by Laboratory of Environmental Remediation of Environmental Engineering Department, Institut Teknologi 10 Nopember, Surabaya. And it's my greatest pleasure to welcome Professor Dato Seri Dr. Mushrifah Idris from Universiti Kebangsaan, Malaysia as today's keynote speaker, and also all professors and lecturers from Environmental Engineering Department and all participants. Before we start, I'm going to briefly explain the structure of today's lecture. First, we will have opening speech, followed by an hour lecture by Professor Dato Seri, Dr. Mushrifah Idris, and then 30 minutes question and answer session, and finally conclusion to close our lecture today. We are expected to finish today's lecture at 3 p.m. Central Indonesia time. Now for the opening, we will sing 3 consecutive songs. The first is the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya, followed by the hymn of Institut Teknologi, and then the hymn of Environmental Engineering Department. The committee will lead us to sing the song. The committee, floor is yours. You might start the song.
Departemen Teknik Lingkungan ITS di Surabaya dengan mengusung visi, misi, serta profil profesional mandiri berusaha memberikan yang terbaik kepada masyarakat Indonesia, ya, bangsa, dan negara. Departemen Teknik Lingkungan ITS mengajarkan tidak hanya mahasiswa namun juga seluruh sivitas akademik meliputi dosen maupun tenaga kependidikan mengenai hal-hal fundamental maupun praktek bagaimana kita bisa mengurangi pencemaran lingkungan serta mengendalikan pencemaran yang sudah terjadi.
Departemen Teknik Lingkungan ITS yang berdiri sejak tahun 1983, kemudian menjadi program studi teknik lingkungan di tahun 1993, ini merupakan salah satu departemen yang terbaik di ITS. Dan kita juga bisa tahu bahwa dalam bidang ilmu, terutama teknik lingkungan, ini sangat dibutuhkan di skala global. Sehingga kita bisa melihat bahwa teknik lingkungan sangat dibutuhkan di skala dunia ini dan termasuk 40 pekerjaan yang paling diminati di seluruh dunia dan itu akan berkembang sampai ke depannya.
Yang diajarkan di program studi teknik lingkungan ada 3 prinsip lingkungan, yaitu penyediaan, pencegahan, dan remediasi. Artinya, yang pertama, penyediaan di sini adalah penyediaan sarana prasarana atau infrastruktur lingkungan. Kemudian pencegahan itu adalah pencegahan terhadap terjadinya pencemaran baik oleh gas buang, oleh limbah dari industri, dari domestik, dan sebagainya. Kemudian juga pengendalian atau pengelolaan sampah, dan sebagainya. Nah, di sini ada 3 program studi utama, yaitu program studi sarjana teknik lingkungan atau S1, kemudian ada magister teknik lingkungan atau S2, dan doktor teknik lingkungan atau S3 dengan berbagai bidang keahlian atau peminatan.
Departemen Teknik Lingkungan menyediakan berbagai fasilitas untuk memenuhi kebutuhan belajar mengajar. Di antaranya internet yang dapat diakses di seluruh bagian bangunan teknik lingkungan, ruang baca, dan ruang laboratorium. Teknik lingkungan mempunyai 5 laboratorium, yaitu Laboratorium Teknologi Pengelolaan Air, Laboratorium Manajemen Kualitas Lingkungan, Laboratorium Remediasi Lingkungan, Laboratorium Sampah dan B3, Laboratorium Udara.
Jadi treatment yang kami lakukan terhadap mahasiswa terutama, kita tidak hanya mengadakan perkuliahan dengan metode yang secara konvensional atau dengan penjelasan, tetapi kita mempunyai banyak mata kuliah yang berkaitan dengan project based learning, yaitu mereka belajar merencanakan berdasarkan atas kondisi real di lapangan. Kita punya beberapa mata kuliah seperti itu sehingga dapat diterapkan langsung di masyarakat.
Pendidikan yang berkaitan dengan karakter. Jadi dalam hal ini kami percaya bahwa proses pendidikan karakter itu yang pada prinsipnya adalah berkaitan dengan soft skills, baik itu berkaitan leadership, kerjasama, how to communicate, ya, jadi bagaimana berkomunikasi dengan orang lain dan kemudian memimpin sebuah tim dan sebagainya, itu menjadi prioritas di dalam proses pendidikan sehingga saudara diharapkan mampu berkiprah ketika sudah lulus nanti.
Selama saya berkuliah di Teknik Lingkungan ITS, tentunya saya mendapatkan banyak ilmu yang bermanfaat terkait pengelolaan lingkungan, perencanaan terkait teknik lingkungan, dan bagaimana cara kita mempertahankan kualitas lingkungan. Di mana pada saat ini orang-orang sangat banyak memperhatikan terkait isu-isu lingkungan. Oleh sebab itu, saya sebagai mahasiswa teknik lingkungan sangat senang apabila nantinya saya akan bermanfaat, terutama dalam menyumbang ilmu di bidang teknik lingkungan.
Yang saya peroleh dari Departemen Teknik Lingkungan tentunya ilmu terkait dengan teknik lingkungan itu sendiri dan juga tempaan untuk menjadi pribadi yang baik. Tepat waktu, pekerja keras, dan percaya diri tentunya. Hal ini menjadi bekal saya dalam melaksanakan tugas-tugas di Kementerian PUPR.
suka saya waktu belajar di Departemen Teknik Lingkungan ITS adalah lingkungan yang sangat-sangat suportif terkait proses belajar mengajar, di mana dosen-dosennya yang sangat friendly terhadap mahasiswanya, lalu teman-teman yang sangat suportif, dan tentunya fasilitas yang sangat memadai untuk kami belajar di Departemen Teknik Lingkungan ITS.
Sudah banyak sekali kejuaraan-kejuaraan atau award yang dicapai oleh Departemen Teknik Lingkungan. Yang pertama berkaitan dengan skala ITS sendiri, kami beberapa kali menjadi jurusan atau departemen dengan pengelolaan manajemen yang terbaik.
Salah satu prestasi yang telah diraih oleh mahasiswa Teknik Lingkungan ITS adalah menjuarai lomba desain instalasi pengolahan air limbah yang dilaksanakan oleh Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup dan Kehutanan pada tahun 2020.
Secara kontinu kami melakukan proses perbaikan menyesuaikan dengan perkembangan yang ada. Dalam beberapa hal kami telah melakukan kerjasama baik dengan bidang profesi maupun dengan universitas-universitas ada yang di luar negeri. Tujuannya tiada lain adalah agar kami selalu bisa berada di depan, selalu bisa memecahkan persoalan-persoalan yang berkembang sesuai dengan perkembangan zaman itu sendiri. Harapannya adalah bahwa Departemen Teknik Lingkungan ini akan menjadi departemen yang mampu memberi kontribusi nyata terhadap pembangunan bangsa. Nah, maka bergabunglah dengan Departemen Teknik Lingkungan.
Thank you for the video that brings a lot of memory for me personally as a fellow alumni from the program. It was a great time indeed to study in Environmental Engineering Department of Institut Teknologi Sepuluh Nopember, and I wish you all who still studying there will also have a great time to shape you as a future engineer and also as a better person. So now I would like to invite Dr. Engineer Ari Dipareza Syafei as the head of Environmental Engineering Department to give us the opening speech. To Dr. Ari, it's my pleasure to hand over the session to you. Yes, Dr. Ari.
Yes. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. First of all, I'd like to welcome virtually to Professor Dato Seri, Dr. Mushrifah Idris, Honorary Advisor to Tasik Chini Research Center, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, and I also see Professor Siti Rozaiman. Welcome, Professor Siti. Thank you for your attendance. How are you?
Fine, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. And I also see some colleagues from UKM, from Malaysia, on which we've met before, especially the past conference held in Surabaya. I also see Dr. Isra, for example. Wow, it's been a long time. Even though, even though we haven't been in conversation before, but I always see your name. And also other colleagues, welcome again, welcome virtually in our guest lecture. Thank you for your time. And also other colleagues from Malaysia, which I cannot mention one by one. From IDS, thank you, especially from Laboratory of Remediation, Environmental Remediations, the head be Dr. Pepi, and also Bu Harmin, Bu Ipung, and I'm expecting, hopefully Professor Sarmoko will join us soon. Thank you. And there are also head of laboratories, Pak Adi, and maybe I missed some of our colleagues, Pak Seto, maybe Pak Adi, and also other colleagues. I hope I don't miss anyone. And also moderator, Miss Februriyana. Thank you for your time. And again, I would like to express my sincere gratitude. Great thank you for contributions from UKM, Professor Dr. Mushrifah and Professor Siti Rosaima, especially during the time when you accept our students take part of your online lecturing last semester. And for that, I'm very grateful, and hopefully, yeah, in the next future, we can collaborate more and more.
Yeah, more than that, inshallah.
And of course, I do hope that the COVID cases in Malaysia decreasing soon, so that we can travel on a back and forth. Yeah.
Everybody is waiting for that.
Yeah, especially me and also colleagues here. Yeah. Yeah, and also hope that you and your family and colleagues' family there also in a very good health. Yeah, nothing happened there. Hopefully. Yeah. Also the participants, thank you for being here, allocating your precious time. And I think this is in our department, this is the second international guest lecture, and this event is held by the Laboratory of Environmental Remediation with the topic of remediation of polluted lakes and its management. I think we can share a lot, especially how the lake management is done in Malaysia in particular. So I think that will be all, and I really look forward that we can talk further after this session in the very near future, hopefully. With other events and academic collaboration as well. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Rari, for your thoughtful address. And now, before we begin the main event today, the guest lecture, I would like to invite all participants to say a prayer based on our own beliefs. The prayer may start. The prayer may finish. So now we will start the guest lecture. It is with great honor that I might introduce to you Professor Dato Seri Dr. Mushrifah Idris. She's a retired professor from UKM Malaysia. I'm sorry, I will have to drink. Okay, Professor Dato Seri Dr. Mushrifah Idris is a retired professor from UK Malaysia with expertise in phytoremediation, ecotoxicology, river and lake ecology. She's also a specialist in UNESCO Manned Biosphere Program and founder of Tasik Chini Research Center at UKM. She received multiple awards from UNESCO, including UNESCO Malaysia Award in 2011 and UNESCO Biotech Award in 1998. As well as multiple awards from UKM for teaching excellence, industry, and research grants. The honorary Professor Dato Seri Dr. Mushrifah Idris has a long-standing career as principal consultant and researcher, including principal consultant for eco-friendly construction of freshwater laboratory complex at Tasik Chini Research Center at UKM from 2010 to 2019. Also, principal consultant for strategic implementation plan sustainability for UNESCO Tasik Chini Biosphere Reserve from 2012 to 2013, and many more. She was also actively involved as a panel and committee member of several foundations and task force groups on environmental issues for state of Pahang and federal from 2010 to 2019. So Professor Dato Seri Dr. Mushrifah Idris, it is a great honor to introduce you, and it's a pleasure to hand you over the session. Please, Professor.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Well, you have to help me with getting the screen on. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, and a very good afternoon to everybody and all the listeners. I can see that there are a lot of listeners down there. And I would like to thank the Laboratory for Environment Remediation, Department of Environmental Engineering, Faculty of Civil Planning and Geoengineering, Institut Teknologi Sepuluh November, for inviting me to share some of my very small experiences in phytoremediation. And I will try and put on the screen so that you could see my presentation. Okay, my talk today is about the remediation of polluted water and soil and its management. Is everybody able to see my slides?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, sure. Okay, so I will brief you a bit on the journey that I'm going to take you. So the outline will be the journey of my talk. And this journey is about an hour, and I want to share how I was involved in factor remediation from a long time ago. I think some of you were not born yet at the time. And then I've looked into some concepts of the plant habitats that involve in factor remediation, and the concepts from early of the factor remediation, or we call it hyperaccumulated at that time, and into right now where we have a long list of technology selection and management. And then I will print out a bit on the selected photo remediation experiences, and probably we'll look into the future research. Okay, let me take you to a short journey. About 17 years ago, that's a long time ago, and I think some of you are children at that time. So I used to walk around in areas that are quite unfriendly, and some of those areas are sludge disposal area, mining areas, and we have also wastewater and treatment plants. So I found out that there are plants that are able to survive because it looks like a semi-arid desert. And then you will think why some of the plants do exist, and how and why do they survive. And you take a look at some of the areas that I went to are tin tailing areas, iron tailing areas, sludge areas. We noticed that only certain plants grew in that area. And I wonder at that time what these plants are called. So we found out that in the late 1980s, this plant, they call them the hyperaccumulator plants. So let's take a look at how they come about to reach the consensus of the hyperaccumulator plants. Some of these hyperaccumulator plants, they are various. I have to do it right. Okay. So some of these plants, the habitat is in aquatic environment. We have lotus. Some can be beautiful, others not so beautiful. And we have in tin tailing areas, we found plants like Cyprus rotundus. We also found some plants that are unknown, and we are not able to identify them. And there are also plants that are found in tin tailing areas. And in Thailand, we call Februriyana. And in Malaysia, we do have Februriyana, but it is not as common as in Thailand. And when I went to a gold mining area in Malaysia, in Rawup, I noticed that some of the reforestation program were not really going very well, because I suppose some of the plants are stunted in growth, but instead of instead of the plants that grow, it's the growing habitat actually mainly grass. So grass will be one of the habitat for some of the succession in areas where it has long been abandoned. Okay, these are the earlier findings. Some early findings are about the hyperaccumulator plants, which at that time, they defined the hyperaccumulator plants has the ability of these plants to grow in soil that are hidden with metal or non-metal. So they call it metalliferous soil. And these plants are able to accumulate extraordinary high amounts of the parts in the area. In the area organs, the shoots, the stems, the branches, flowers, fruits. And when this area organ concentration of the toxicant are actually far more than found in most of the species that was around there. And these plants did not suffer any toxicity effect. So based on that, so the research goes on and on. From 1977, it goes on, where in 1977, the hyperaccumulative plant are being proposed by Brooks. And then in 1990, Chini uses the hyperaccumulative plants as plants that are able to accumulate more than 100 micromoles of cadmium. So they usually, at that time, they only look into metals. So in this time is cadmium. So normal plants, instead of 100 micromoles of cadmium, most plants can accumulate 0.5 to 5 micromole of cadmium. And then in 2002, McGrath put in the hyperaccumulator has plants that are able to accumulate very high, from 100 to 1,000 heavy metals in their shoots compared to non-accumulator plants. And then in 2007, Branquinho put a few more research findings stating that the plant that accumulates in tissues 10 to 500 times more than those in other areas. So it gets bigger and bigger. The findings get more and more. And then the plants that have a ratio of metal concentration, the above ground and the underground, are usually greater than 1. So the research continued in 2011 by Rasil and Navari, and look at some of the characteristics of these hyperaccumulator plants that has been proposed. And they find out that a good writing keep being asked by researchers, the heavy metal plants, why and how do they, and what they are, why they are so interesting. So these are the things that some of the progress of how research has continued from 1977. Well, I did my PhD around 1989, so I was around Chini time. So if you look at my thesis, it was a mere status of its accumulation and why it is accumulated, and some anatomical areas of its deposition. So that was the time when hyperaccumulator plants was researched. But as we go down to current, the concept of hyperaccumulators gets better and better. And if you look at the hyperaccumulator plant that has been established, is whether that plant can be a hypertolerant plant, and most of it will be deposit in the upper ground, the stem, the leaf, and the fruits and seeds, or they can be a hypertolerant plant. So this concept is already been established by 2010. Then there are, of course, some exhibits of this plant. So when we look into the this hyperaccumulator plant, they notice that they do exhibit a lot of responses towards the environment they are in. So some of the responses can be looked into has concentration of plant and concentration of metal in the soil. So when a plant are able to actually retain some of the concentration in the roots of the plant, so meaning that has the concentration of metal and in the soil and in the plant, it's not as much as it is. So we call this plant metal excluders. So plants are able to prevent entrance of some metals into aerial plants. And we also have metal indicators, which says that the relationship between the concentration of metal in the plant and soil is generally linear. So we look at this. These are one of the exhibits that shown in the plant, and we call these metal indicators. That means they are able to indicate how much of the concentration of the area by analyzing the plant parts. So these are called metal indicators. So we have another concept where a plant could actually, when you look into this graph, it is able to accumulate a number of times more than it should. So if you look at the concentration of the plant, it grows higher than what it is in the soil. So this plant exhibit what we call as a metal hyper accumulator, and their plants can accumulate metals in the aerial part. So these are the journey of how plants have been identified under hyperaccumulator plants, and by then they've already uses what we call as hyperaccumulation threshold limit. So when you want to calculate, when you compare plants, so instead of just accumulation of plants, they now use hyperaccumulator threshold limits to indicate how much of the plants are able to accumulate metals in plants in milligrams per kilogram. So then the units have come in now. Before it was just how much it accumulate, which parts and so on, but now we have a threshold value. So we have a recent research now, which includes the plant microbe, and this plant microbe, they are more complex in a way that they did not want to just says that it's just an accumulation value, and that it doesn't include other areas. But it also, if you look at some of the figures that have been given by other researchers, by Sophie especially, it involved some plant microbe partnership in hyperaccumulation. So it looks that some of the plants or rooting system has involved the microbe, fungus, some of the the microorganism, which are actually found in the roots, and they do play a very important role in the detoxification of genes and the metal transporter provided by the plant. So this again brings a new light of the purpose of some of the unexplained transportation mechanism that we don't know. So these are the new insights where the rhizosphere, the endosphere are involved, and also how we should include some of the calculation when involving some of this microbe. So Sophie, Idris et al., they have given a comprehensive outlook of the involvement of microbe partnership. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. This is more towards our Malaysian scene on the list of the hyperaccumulator plant species. We noticed that while looking and identifying some of these plants, we realized that some plants are specific. They're specific to metal accumulation. They're specific to hydrocarbons and organics. And of course, researchers have compiled a lot of plants from other regions on the various plants that could exhibit the three functions that we have discussed just now. So let's take a look at functions of these plants, because some plants they are found in specific areas. And I'm showing you some of the list of the hyperaccumulated plant species that have been actually been documented under Science Direct. These are called the metal accumulated terrestrial plants. And if you look at some of the plants, we have these are all Ipomea, these are kangkong, Aeconia, big trees, and we have jagung there, zimes, Vitata, Telaspi, some of the terrestrial plants, sorghum, arabis, bracaceae, which is a bayam species. Okay, so all these plants we noticed that at that time looks into its accumulation in metals, and then the word here is bioaccumulation, and you notice that the units they have used is milligrams per kilogram, and they also use by dry weight of the sap, and then then milligrams per kilograms dry weight in shoot, and so on. So these are the things that have actually been used when expressing the list of hyperaccumulated plant species. Let's take a look at another slide. Okay, this is the list of the hyperaccumulated plants. There are actually in the metal aquatic plants. So some of the aquatic plants that have actually been recorded. There are many. I'm just taking a few here. Aquatic plants such as Ecophrya, Pistia, Salvinia, Lemna, Meta, Pragmatis, Scopus. We have here Scopus in the tropical countries. And again, some of the accumulators are again metals, and they are also expressed in milligrams per kilogram, as most of the other researchers have done. Okay, now what is the role of the remediation in right now? So let me bring you to the Earth Summit. So World Topic has discussed on the Earth Summit. Earth Summit was in 1992. Some of you must be still a child, and some of the Earth Summit, which is in Rio, addressed some of the urgent problems on environmental protection and socio-economic development. So that was what discussed during the Earth Summit. Then comes also conservation. Conservation policy are put in place because we have pollution. And then we have the Agenda 21. So I suppose Indonesia must have had Agenda 21, because in Malaysia, every district, even in our own area, housing area, we have supported Agenda 21. So the real declaration on the Agenda 21 is about the principles of sustainable management, especially of forests. And I suppose about 178 countries have actually signed on this development under the Environmental and Development UNCED. So again, you can see that some of the sustainable development are geared towards environmental degradation. And of course, then we have in 2002, we have the Johannesburg Earth Summit. We call it Declaration of the Sustainable Development that look into population growth and developing economies. It looks into technological industrial advancement, and of course, it comes into human being that needs clean and healthy environment. So these are the path that has actually taken us into the SDG. So from the Joburg to 2002, so we come about the 17 SDG. So I think we are involved with a lot here. We are involved in 3, even 1. Then we are involved in 14, 15 and 17. We need a partnership as well, because partnership is green technology is not cheap. Green technology is expensive. So we need a partnership. So based on the SDG, there are some papers that have actually looked into the impact of the soil pollution on the Sustainable Development Goal based on soil pollution and loss. And we do know that the soil pollution negatively impacts the sustainable development, hindering progress on the number of the SDGs, and that's set out by United Nations. So let's take a look at SDG 1, the poverty. So it again impacts the soil pollution. So because of that, it reduces crop yield, it reduces income, and it can jeopardize health and cognitive potential. So it does affect SDG 1. And look at SDG 2. The SDG 2 is about zero hunger. And it is also related to soil pollution, because the existence of soil pollution can lower food production, and it can also limit the availability of the land for growing crop, because areas have been used for dumping, areas have been used for sludge treatment. Again, if you look at SDG 3, it's about good health and well-being. Again, this is impact on soil pollution. I suppose impacts of health on impacts of soil pollution and health has had its mark a long time ago, when I read an issue on the US Superfund, where it was in Long Island, New York. They had a company who dumped all of their waste into a land, but then the land was then sold to the Ministry of their Education, and the Ministry of Education built schools on this land. Then the problem arises when the release of toxic was released to an environment, and that is a school area and it is education area. So a lot of people got affected. So the same thing can happen. So because of that, SDG 3 on good health and well-being and well-being has an impact on the soil pollution. Now let's take a look at again SDG 6. We need clean water and sanitation. So if we pollute the underground water, the groundwater, if we have pollution to the drinking water, which is a source of surface runoff, so SDG 6 will be one of those impacts. We also have SDG 11. For SDG 11, sustainable systems and community, again, is based on the soil pollution. So the result in derelict land, environmental displacement, and equinox exposure, that will bring a hard hit on the SDG 11. Let's take a look at SDG 12. Again, the soil pollution could be produced due to responsible consumption production, where making the production of agriculture can be very difficult. So these are the things that we have to look into. And take a look at soil pollution based on climate change. I suppose this thing doesn't have to be spelled out, because we have climate change, climate action that has occurred right under our nose. We have forest fires, we have floods, and all this can result in the soil get contaminated. And the soil is supposed to reduce the carbon storage potential, and it's result in deforestation to obtain new farmland. So it does affect the SDG 13. And also soil pollution does affect the SDG 15, the life on land. It threatens the health of plants, animals, and reduce soil biodiversity. So these are the impacts, the negative impacts on soil pollution that we notice in relation to SDG. So phytoremediation plays a very important role with I suppose about 8 SDGs that we have to tackle. Okay, let's take a look at the concept. So by now, by 2014, the concept of phytoremediation is already been established, and under United Nations Environmental Protection, it has defined the phytoremediation as the use of living green plants for in situ removal, degradation, and containment of contaminants in soil, surface, and groundwater. So it has been accepted by UNEP, and I think there are a lot of big projects that you could run under UNEP program. Okay, this again are the primary understanding of the mechanism. So the primary mechanism on the phytoremediation is on the role of the rhizosphere. So this is a big role that it plays. And then of course the accumulation in the upper parts of the plant. So this is the role of the upper part of the plant. And of course the whole phytoremediation is a green technology. So these are the things that could enhance some of the work in phytoremediation, and this mechanism has been stated by EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, in the year 2000. So again, those who are doing phytoremediation research, I suppose there are a lot of areas that can be looked into. Again, there are types of phytoremediation. With the advancement of the phytoremediation research, the hyperaccumulation threshold limit could be established. And we do know that then we can't just look into, again, has threshold limit. We couldn't look into the accumulation status, because now we look into some of the areas which have not been discussed before. And there are many things that encompass phytoremediation. Well, if you look into the new citation, they don't just say in milligrams per kilogram. They now look into what we call as the biological absorption coefficient, because when we look at the BAC value, it is calculated in base of the ratio of heavy metal content in plant and soil, and BAC value has a concentration of the ratio of plant to soil, and this could classify whether the plant is a high accumulator plant, or the plant is a moderate accumulator plant, or the plant is just a low accumulator plant. So with this BAC value, in modern research now, we are able to bring forward to identify which of this phytoremediation that are applied to that plant. And we also have what we call as BCF. So BCF is again the bioconcentration factor. In this, bioconcentration factors also play a very important role in deciding which of the plant exhibits any of this mechanism. And then we also have the TF, the translocation factor, and it's also the ratio of the metal concentration of the shoots, and we have factors that are more than one, then it means that the plant is a hyperaccumulator plant and it is able to form phytoextraction. So these are the things that one look into when we identify whether the plant are hyperaccumulator and what type of phytoremediation process that it go, whether it's a phytoextractor or rhizofiltration or phytostabilization or phytodegradation and so on. So these are the things that we need to look into. We also realize that hyperaccumulators are characterized by the translocation factor, as I've said before, but then this is also means that the heavy metal are actively transported into green plants of the green parts of the plant, and it is not a single measure of hyperaccumulation. So again, you see there are many other things that you have to include when you want to do some of this research in phytoremediation. Okay, Stoner in 2002 has come up with various application of what have been said earlier. Under phytotransformation, which actually is absorption, the contaminants that could be used would be that have been used to remediate would be organics, include nitroamics and chlorinated aliphatics. And they are mainly plants and trees and grasses, perennial trees and grasses. And if we have rhizosphere, which involve the microbe biodegradation, the contaminants are actually organics, and it include some of the adventitious type of grasses, which is grass, alfalfa, and some trees. For phytostabilizer, the contaminants are actually metals and organics, and there are various plants with deep and fibrous root system. Phytoextraction, metals, inorganic, radionuclides, and of course there are a variety of naturally selected type of plants. So these are the things that we have to look into when we look into soil remediation plants, because later I will explain to you why we need to know about this. So when we look into the groundwater, so under groundwater we have rhizofiltration, hydraulic control, phytovolatilization, and vegetative caps. So the contaminants are varied. So for rhizofiltration, it can be both metals, radionuclide, and of course some other types that could be used for this kind of phytoremediators are aquatic plants. And then poplar willow trees for hydraulic control, and for volatile organic compounds under photovolatilization, we can have brassicaceae, grass, vellum plants, and vegetative caps for the removal of contaminants such as organic and inorganic. We have trees such as alfalfa and grasses. Okay, let's take a look at some of these technology selection and design management. So when we want to design some of these phytoremediation techniques, so we have to look into the plant selection. So plant selection would be some of the plant species that have appropriate characteristic for growth for the site condition. And then we have also to look at the growth rate. So it has to be a fast growth rate, and it has to have a short duration of time to ensure that it reach a large biomass. And we also have to ensure that the large root mass and large biomass could increase the rate of phytoremediation. So we have some of these plants that grow in our lab in UKM, where we can grow them in masses in short time. We have taproot system, and we have top root system. We call it adventitious root system. So these are the things that we look into when we want to select plant concentration. And we also have to ensure that the plant could grow, whether the plant could grow in the water, or the plant could grow has a intermittent between dry and wet areas. Some of the studies right now also look into some of the phytotoxicity testing, because to ensure that the plant do not exhibit death during planting, we have to ensure that it passes the phytotoxic testing to ensure that it is able to be alive even at very high concentration. So we look at some of the SEM, the scanning electron microscope, on why some of the plants were not able to grow. Is because there are lesions in the root system when exposed to certain toxicant. In this case, we have 3 kilograms per kilogram of gasoline. And also there is a lesion in stem and breakup of some of the vessels, again in the stomata of the leaves, and also in the trichomes. Trichomes are important for the safety of the plants, and also some of the chlorophyll. So these are the things that we have to now to look into when we want to ensure that the plant pass the test for to use it for the testing beds. Okay, we have another means of looking at phytoremediation. Some of the practice that we have done are what we call has use planting or using the plants in floating beds, or we call it the reed beds. So under such situation, we can do it. This is where some of the recycled materials have been used. If you look at the first diagram here, it is this is plastic. So when we put plastic and then we wire it out, and then we put some of the silinsing, pokok silinsing. So these are one of the things to look into the remediation of sewage. And of course, this is a canna tree. Canna leaf. This was taken in China, and that plant was actually used to float and used to remediate a sewage ponding system. So that was done there. And the third picture, the rows and rows of plants here are actually done in India, where they use it to remediate some of the water before it actually enters into their cultivation area. And this is one of our model set up using plan design for the reed bed. And the Prof Zama is there supervising the student. Okay, some of this design that has actually been proposed are simple design, and some of design has got patented. So when you look at such a small design and they have been patented, so you look at some of the patents, it's just using plants, and then you check that it could remediate some of the pollutants. And also have what we call as a floating media, and that's also been patented. So these are the things that we could look into. Okay, when we look into experiences, I have my experience are not as large as your experience, but these are small experiences I could share with you, because some of the experience we have used, some of the things that I have said to clean up petroleum hydrocarbon sludge, where we work with Petronas. And we also have factory remediation of the domestic sewage, which we did in campus to clean up some of the oxidation podding system, the sewage that goes into the oxidation podding system. And there's also a green design, which we did for Tasik University Center, which is a double cleanup, I call it. So this is one of the cleanup that we did for the petroleum hydrocarbon sludge and metal hydrocarbon, which we use piping system to actually fill up the sludge area with the contaminated water. And then we also design the area with trees that are deep rooted, because we noticed that when we were there, we look into the depth of how deep the sludge is. So we need a deep rooting trees, and we need a tree that actually covers, remediate the upper 1 meter. And then we look into trees that have deep adventitious root system, which covers more than 1 meter. So these are the things that we did. And I have some pictures to show. The petro hydrocarbon remediation area plot. So we selected the plots. We measured how much the mass is to remediate a certain quantity area of the sludge, and we find out that in 2 weeks we planted. So it has some sort has a percentage of the TPH is reduced by 35%, and by the time it goes into 10 weeks, that's gone to 66%. So by then, the 10 weeks, so the trees have actually grown. So Petronas was quite happy that the land has been remediated. And then after 24 weeks, when we did a test to show that it is fully remediated, the numbers, the concentration of the petrochemical hydrocarbon are reduced, and it is approved by the Environmental Quality Act under the Ministry of Environment. So this is one of our successful project of designing the types of plants to ensure that there's a full remediation there. On the second part of it, we had the factory remediation of domestic sewage using reed bed. So we have a reed bed where we have each sector of the reed of the block has actually been planted with certain plants. Some are single species, some are double species, and then we mix the species to look into how effective are the remediator. So it is a reed-based system for domestic wastewater, where we pump from the oxidation ponding system into this reed bed. And we find out that phosphate and nitrate are removed by 100%. The BOD5, COD, TSS is removed 96%, and it produces effluent within standard A based on the thickness of the sand filter. So we found out that the retention time, the retention time from one box to the next is 3 days. So these are some of the research that we have done. We have another research we designed with green, we call it the green STP standard, the STP sewage center. But instead of instead of just having the normal sewage here, so the sewage that is a PE 1000, I think. It will, from there, it will go into what we call has a retention ponding system. So from that retention ponding system, it will go through another outlet into what we call has a constructed wetland. And this constructed wetland will go through the phytoremediation, and it goes out into the lake. But it is still there in the research center. But right now, I think because it has not been fully used as yet, because of the number of students and number of people going there have not reached the 1000 PE. So right now, it is just here. So it has not gone here. But we hope that with the number of people coming in and staying in the hostels and staying there, so the water would have gone here, and we could have taken some of the research data to look into the effectiveness of some of these designs. Okay, so then let's take a look at some of the potential research in phytoremediation. I think a lot of question has been asked in a lot of conferences. How are we going to dispose of these heavy-laden phytoremediation plants? So these are again ensuring that we do have an area to look into. And again, which of the plants that have an efficient genotype that could actually run at least 3 or 4 of the mechanism. Okay, and another area that we could look into is the interaction of the symbiotic salt microorganism on the toxicant. And again, how are we going to manage some of the heavy metal polluted soils? And the new uses now is algae biomass. So this is also another using it, but most of the algae biomass I've only used in the lab level, but I've not used it on a large scale. But this is also another challenging area to look into the use of biomass. Then of course we have to look into proof of concept, just to show that phytoremediation costs really less than the conventional method. So these are the things that we have to look into at potential research in phytoremediation. Now it looks like there are special journals dedicated just for phytoremediation. We have a lot of journals to publish, but dedicated ones like International Journal of Phytoremediation, Asian Journal of Green Chemistry, Soil Remediation Plant, and I mean the young generations are very lucky. During my time, we don't have any journals on phytoremediation. We just send to any journal, and if they accept, you are lucky. But right now we have dedicated. So I'm sure one day we can have our own journal in relation to UKM and Institut Bandung, Institut Surabaya. So these are some of my selected phytoremediation publication. The early publication is in 1998, and I did my sabbatical in Paris, which I published using SIMS to look into some of the bioaccumulation of chromium and aluminium in the mangrove, which has is new thing that we find out that some of the aluminium are actually chelated to the protein has metallothionein and alum. Now, of course, Dr. Hamin here has helped us to publish a lot of books and papers as well. And we have also Isra helping us with some of publication. Okay, I think I'm coming to the end of the presentation, and I would like to thank you, terima kasih, for listening to my presentation. Thank you very much. I pass it over to the moderator.
Thank you, Professor Mushrifah. It was really interesting lecture in terms of phytoremediation. I also started my interest in environmental engineering thanks to phytoremediation. So it's indeed a great to recall back those study. So so now we have about 30 minutes question and answer session. So if you wish to have a question for Professor Mushrifah, for the participant, you might activate your raise hand feature so I can give you the session to ask. And I would like you to request to switch on the camera while you ask the question. Or alternatively, you can type your question in the comment box and with your name and affiliation, and I will deliver the question to Professor Mushrifah. So for the first session, I will open for 3 questions. If anyone has a question, you might you can activate your raise hand feature or write in the comment box. Is anyone has a question? I see some hand rising. Well, okay. This is the okay. Please, Miss Rizky Mona Shavila. The first question, and then I will, if we have 2 more participants to ask, then we can continue, or else I will give Ms. Rizky to ask first. Do we have any other participant who wants to ask Professor Mushrifah?
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Professor. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for the presentation because it is very outstanding, especially for me. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rizky Mona Shaulia. I used to study in master degree in environmental engineering in ITS Surabaya. But unfortunately, I'm sorry because my laptop camera is broken. I can turn on the camera. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For my thesis itself, I was having a remediation for the topic, but the difference is that I was having the bioremediation, not the phytoremediation itself. So I would like to ask 2 questions regarding to representation. The first question is especially about the phytoremediation itself. I mean, because we are talking about the plan for the accumulate the heavy metals for some places, I would like to ask about what are we supposed to do for the disposal for the plants that already used for the research itself. Because I mean, for the bioremediation itself, the difference is that we are using the bacteria that will be degrade with the soil itself. But I mean, what are we supposed to do with the plants? And for the second question, I would like to ask about any other methods or methodologies that we can use for the remediation that we can use in water or in polluted lakes or any other types of water. I mean, are we actually have other methodologies to use other than using the plants that will be same effective as we use the plants itself? I think that's the questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me repeat your question. Your question is about you're doing bioremediation, and you're asking about how are you going to have a proper disposal for the bioremediation, right?
Yes, true.
Usually, when we do phytoremediation, most of our contents are actually enclosed. It's whether it is in a tank or whether it is in if it's in a lake, then it is contained within an area. So when we do remediation, we don't actually leave it out openly. So it's like a containment. So it has the rig bit I have showed you, because some of these floaters, you can move them. You can move from one area to the next area. And when some of these plants have actually been laden with the toxicant, we remove them and we replace a new one. So these are one of the methods of disposal, because it is quite easy to dispose because we contain them, because we don't spread them out. And other methods of remediation, other than using aquatic plants or biomass for algae, we could also use what we call as plants, floating plants, and these floating plants are even easier to contain. Different floating plants, you can just leave it out there until it actually are laden with the hyperaccumulators, and then when our results indicate that they have enough of the hyperaccumulators, then we can actually harvest them. So the disposal of a harvest usually is still questionable because it is heavy metal or it is a toxicant. If it is volatile, it's okay. But if it does not volatile, then to extract back the metal or the toxicant, especially metals, it needs large quantities to be profitable. So most companies would not extract metal if it's non-potable. So this is a question of disposal. Again, if you want to extract, it has to be on a large scale. On the lab scale, I find that extracting some of the metals from plants can be tedious, and it's not much of the metals that you can extract anyway. So there's still room for expansion on looking at how can we look into how we can extract from the disposed materials. I hope that answers the question. Is that this key?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Right,
But
thank you.
Professor, in addition, I mean, if we talk about the disposal, I mean, it's already become a big questions for some of the research. I mean, in every country, I guess. But
yes.
Have you ever think that if we use the floating plant itself, it will be very useful as the same we use the aquatic plants that are not floating? I mean, how do we?
It depends on the objective of the area, because some plants need to have it's not available locally. So again, we have to look into cost. If it's not available locally, then we have to find a local plant which we could use to use it as a phytoremediator, or else then we have to have a nursery and costs get involved. So when we look remediate, we always have to have cost. I always tell my students that they always like to do a lot of research, but they never put the cost in. So probably in the future, researchers who does phytoremediation, they must put the cost in as well. I mean, to check into what if the cost of the if it's successful, for example, if successful, it can remediate 100%. So what is the cost if it were to use other conventional methods? So these are the things that the industries like, because right now industries cannot give us a cost, okay, because they are so used to the conventional method. But according to the research that was carried out by UNESCO, that they can reduce to probably up to 60% of the cost using green technology. But still, we have to have a proof to that. So again, when you want to extract, it's still very difficult to do that. And on top of that, extracting metals can be easier, but hydrocarbons, probably they are volatile, so we don't have much problem. But it is whether the extracted products would be used or recycled would be another question. Is that okay?
Yes, it is very okay. Thank you very much, Professor.
Okay.
I'm sorry for asking too many questions to you.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so now we have the second participant. She's Dr. Asia Al-Mansuri from University Basra, Iraq.
Hello, Dr. Asia. How are you?
Please, doctor, you have a question.
Assalamualaikum, Bro.
Waalaikumsalam. Right. I've
Thank
not
you
seen you
for
for a long time.
presentation. Yes, so sure, I'll miss you. Everyone. I like to see all. Thank you for a presentation, Prof.
Yes.
And I need to ask you for phytoremediation. In Iraq, have very high temperature for up 70 centigrade.
Yes.
For application, phytoremediation is very difficult. How can advise do some factor or advise anything for to successful for phytoremediation in my country, especially in my country, Basra in Iraq, for south of Iraq.
Yes, I know. I have also another student in Iraq. Keep asking me the same question.
Yes,
but I always tell them, why don't you plant as many dates as possible, the kurma, and plant as many dates, but don't eat the fruit. But usually, when you look at phytoremediation, we notice that even in tomato plants, the heavy metals do not go to the fruit. It just goes right only to the leaves and the stem. It doesn't go to the fruit. So probably to get big trees, so you cannot use small trees. You have to use big trees, and it would take a long time. So like olive tree, you can use dates or other trees that are grown in the desert. So these are the trees that you could use for phytoremediators because they don't need water much. Okay, and on top of that, they can grow very well, and they are deep rooted. So, but of course, in terms of cultivation, there are not many problems in Iraq unless the area has been used by dumping industrial waste. Okay, but
in Iraq,
the most important thing is water, isn't it? You have to have water. So if there is no uptake, then it's not possible. There must be some uptake. So for areas that have high temperature, I propose only big trees or grasses, but no other plants. So that would be. So I hope I can go. But I can go again because when I went to Medina and I went to Mecca, well, Mecca doesn't have much trees anyway. They only have bougainvillea. but in Medina, yes, I saw there are some trees that even the local doesn't know what tree that is, and that tree doesn't grow near areas of water areas. They are out in the desert, but they grow. But so it's not zarkum. So these are the things these are the things that you could research in. But to do research for big trees takes a long time, and papers cannot wait a long time unless you have existing tree and look at the tree. That would be one of the easier thing to do.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
All right, okay, most welcome.
It's a really interesting question from Dr. Aisa. Is there any other participant who would like to ask Professor Mushrifah regarding the presentation today?
I can only tell you based on my experience. If I have new technology, I might not be able to answer because I work with old conventional technology, which is during my time. But now they have transgenic plants, and they have genetic engineering. Oh my God! I mean, these are true new ways of looking into phytoremediator plants, and there are so many things that they can do. But again, you try to play God to some of the area can have devastating effects.
That's true. It's true. If there's no one would like to ask the question now, I will actually have a question that I'm eager to ask to Professor Mushrifah.
All right.
So I think it's related to the disposal of metals from after phytoremediation or phytoextraction. Here in Europe, unlike, I think they have less pollution in heavy metal, but they do have some pollutions of heavy of metal as well as micronutrient such as zinc. And in my university, particularly here in Ghent, they start to combine both phytoextraction and then harness the zinc as a supplement, so additive for animal feed. And I think if we refer back to your presentation, there are also some research happen, and they also use alfalfa, for example, and also remove zinc and other micronutrients. How do you see this as the future of phytoremediation, especially because I think developing country, they applied more phytoremediation compared to developed country. They also more pollution happening with a lot of heavy metals and also other organics. So how do you see this to combine phytoremediation and again with using micronutrients, for example, from the extracted metals for the future of phytoremediation?
Yeah, I live in France for 5 years, working with UNESCO, and then I've traveled areas that are contaminated for Eastern Europe to look into what do they do in land disposal that has been used to dispose weaponry and firearms. So there's a lot of heavy metals that they have actually disposed, especially in countries like in Poland and Hungary. So these are former communist country, and I mean they don't have acts for disposal. But I suppose right now the European Union they have a very stringent levels of disposal from factories onto the land, because I suppose Europe is an agriculture country, even though they are also an industrial country. As far as the macronutrients such as zinc that you have stated, if it's been used by in the animal feed, I suppose they are very careful about the quantity of the zinc that be used in the animal feed. I mean, zinc, if it's a zinc is a metallic ion, but it's just the quantity that has been used for the feed that is most important there. And usually in animal feed, it has a certain limit to be used in animal feed. But in some countries, I have not seen France actually using it. But I think it's another country. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it's Sweden, or it is in Sweden, or it's in Finland, that some of these plants that they have zinc in, they use it just to build buildings. They use it for buildings because some of the plants are locked inside the wood system, and it is more stable and inert. So I went to Finland, I think, and I saw that these are some of the buildings that they had in their faculty that they said that has actually remediated a lot of metal from their mining areas, and they don't want to use it for use, but they use it for architectural purpose. So these are one of the things that I've seen. But I mean, those I've sounded was what, before the pandemic, so it was quite some time ago, 4 or 5 years ago. But probably they must have changed it. Probably they could some of the disposal right now they're looking to, especially in the US, they're making into chairs. The chairs, they chip the wood and make it into chairs. So I mean, you don't eat them. So these are the new technology, but of course this technology are for developed countries, not for developing countries like us. I mean, because cost is involved there.
Indeed, agree. Thank you, Professor. I
Most
indeed
welcome.
agree. I think one of the things that separate now developing country and developed country in terms of this phytoremediation is how they think about the disposal. We still think about how to dispose, but I think most of developed country now think about how to reuse them and keep it in a circular
Correct.
economy.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's a
And-
challenge That's
Yes.
for a developing country indeed.
But I think the leading country right now is China. They do a lot of things. I mean, even you can cope with this technology. They have all the technology at the shelves, and just pick up which technology that you want to use. They have it. It's just that whether you have the money, to actually do it.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're a large country.
I think we have a question in the chat box. I will read it for you, Professor.
Okay, all right.
It's from Nita. So what type of plants that are suitable for restoring soil and water in refueling and workshop activities? So these activities have the potential to pollute water and soil, and Nita would like to know what type of plants and what type of plants that are suitable.
So it is, Sunita wants to know the types of plants suitable for restoring soil and water in refueling and workshop activities. You mean these are fuel station? Is it a fuel station?
Is Nita present here to confirm the question?
Are you talking about the fuel station or the petrol station?
Because Nita is not present, but I think I assume yes, it's from the regarding to that activities as well.
Yeah, but I do notice that even in Malaysia, some of our gas station or petrol station, it has always been kept everything under the cement. So under the cement, we have all the tanks and all those things. And of course, some of these waste will go into channels, and then it will be taken up by the lorry to be disposed of. But if the premises are able to run their own small tank remediator, they could actually just put a lamina species there, or they could put some submergent plants, because some of these plants are already established in their remediation mechanism. So if they look into some of the plants that are available and the mechanism that this plant could actually do, so we can always contain them in containers, ground level, so that whatever that the toxicant during rain, it will go into this tank, and then the tank will have the plants there before it actually goes into the STP. So these are the initial, what we call as initial cleanup before it actually goes into a proper cleaning up. I think I can remember I've seen this in China, but it is a dye factory. So they have done that. Instead of just throwing it direct into the pond, they try to remediate with their what is this protein plant that they call it? I can't remember. Then the quantity of the cadmium which contains in the dye are much less, so they recycle that water to be reused. So these are the things that can be done. Well, I hope that answered to Nita.
Yeah, I think indeed it's answered. I hope it's also answered the question. And we have one more question here from Dr. Nur Izzati Ismail, I think from Universiti Kebangsaan, Malaysia.
Yeah.
I think if Dr. Nur Izzati wants to ask the question herself, or I can also read the question for you. So the question is to Professor Mushrifah, in your opinion, what do you think about the integration of phytoremediation with other remediation technologies such as plant microbial full cell?
Okay, in my talk, I have said that phytoremediation is actually a conglomerate of various plants that could do all the mechanism. Some plants could do phyto extraction. Some plants can do phyto volatilization, and some plants can do other things. So it'd be good to have a plant that could do everything, save the cost. So again, we have to go back to the cost. But unfortunately, we don't have a plant that could do everything. So some plants can do certain mechanism, and some plants can do certain mechanism. Even in our research, it's better to have plants that are integrated, phyto and other microbial inputs in the phytoremediation, because it could enhance. The objective of doing phytoremediation is, at the end of the day, you get a clean water. At the end of the day, you are able to remediate as much as 100%. So that was the idea of the phytoremediation. And on top of that, we need to lower down the cost. So phytoremediation and conventional, which one is actually the one that have a better low cost? So that could be it. So if you could integrate phytoremediation and other microbe, if you have a plant like that, then it's good. But unfortunately, people are looking into transgenic plant. So again, transgenic plants are question mark. So why don't you use natural plants that you can find around and mix it? It'd be much better.
Okay, I hope that answered the question to Dr. Nur Izzati Ismail. I think I will open the floor to one more final question from the participants before we conclude the session today. Is there any final questions from the participant from today's lecture? Okay, I think we have no more question. So, like I said before, it's indeed a really interesting topics for me in terms of phytoremediation, because we see phytoremediation sometimes as just plants treating pollutants or pollutions, but more than that, it's also cost effective, and also it's for developing country, it requires less complex technology that might be suitable to apply in developing countries. So I do think phytoremediation is indeed still on one of the best options that developing countries should research more, especially in terms of disposal, as you said.
But
so
if you can show them that it's cost effective, we can go forward. If it's not cost effective, it's very difficult. It has to be cost effective.
Indeed. So I think, Professor, if you could conclude today's session, probably with short remarks about phytoremediation and also the future applications, and then we will proceed to the certificate from the committee to you. Please, Professor, if you could conclude today's session.
Okay, I didn't realize that there are a lot of listeners. I saw many listeners out there, and I think most of these listeners are researchers. I'm already at twilight of my life, which I've spent about many years doing phytoremediation. But I think there are a lot more things to be done and can be done. And of course, if we can't do it because of a cost problem. It needs to be trained, but we can have sort of a community awareness program where we can inform the community that it can start in the backyard, it can start in their home. So I mean, people are looking into water harvesting. So we see sometimes water harvesting, it goes from the roof down before we use it for plants, and we need to ensure that it is clean. Even in my house, I did water harvesting, so I just run it with some plants. I use lotus and bracaceae, kangkong, to ensure that whatever that I got are able to water my herbal plants. So now PKP, the MCO, we cannot go many times to the grocery. So I have my own green garden in the backyard. So these are the things that I suppose people can do phyto remediation, especially on the grey waters at home.
I think, yeah, that's indeed, like the professor said, we should start from as
awareness,
small as
yes.
our backyard, as
Yes.
small of awareness.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Professor, for today's lecture. I believe like from the 100 participants we hear today, it's a really interesting and inspiring guest lecture. So from the committee, from the Environmental Remediation Lab, we would like to give you a certificate for today. I think, should I give the floor to to Dr. Harmil to lead the certificate awarding ceremony?
Thank you, Yana.
Yeah.
I think the Dr. BP should give because Dr. BP the head of the laboratory of our department.
Okay.
Oh, maybe it's a
Okay.
okay. Very young, very young.
Thank you, Prof, for giving us the very interesting topic this afternoon, and I will share the certificate online.
Yeah, okay.
Sebentar.
So is there a way that this video could reach a hand to you? I saw some of this cartoon video where they can accept and they can access certificate.
Gimana ya share-nya? Sebentar. How to share the certificate to Prof Mus? Yes, everyone can see the certificate.
Okay, all right, okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure having to talk on phyto remediation, and I hope that you young scientists won't just stop here. You please continue with phyto. I'm sure after this, your lab can have what we call a sharikat, a company. So it is a start-off company from your lab. So you could, the scientists could do the research, and another group can do the management and implement it up there.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. So to conclude today's session, I would like to invite all participants to open their camera so we can have virtual photo session.
Now, how do you do this? I've never done this before.
We just all open the cameras, and then.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone open the camera? Okay, let me check. Bu Baby, is there anyone from the department who will take the screenshot, or should I take the screenshot?
Maybe you should take the screenshot.
Okay, I'm gonna take the screenshot. So we have 5 slides here. So I have no idea in which slides are you, but just this is what we do in pandemic. Just be prepared to post in every slides, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so for the first slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I will have to save the picture first, so give me some time.
How do you send the picture? Through email?
Yeah, I will send the picture later through WhatsApp. It's possible.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Again, so from the first slide, I see some people actually closing their eyes. So let's
Oh,
do this
okay.
again. Okay, again. Okay, let's go from the first slides. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me check the results. Okay, it's perfect. Okay, now for the second slide. 1, 2, 3.
We didn't know what was.
Yes, exactly. We have no idea in which slides are you, so it's better to keep post.
Don't send our face to the police.
Okay, if anyone still want to open the video, their video. 1, 2, 3.
We still have 3 screens.
And the second last. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And one more screen to capture. Okay, that's actually the last screen. Okay,
Fantastic job.
We take all the pictures. It was a really fun session with you, Professor, today.
Yes.
I hope in the next we have more discussions in terms of fighter remediation, and I hope for everyone who joined today, they learned a lot from you and also from your experience and expertise. And I think that's all for today. Thank you also for having me as the moderator, and I will have to excuse myself because I have another meeting coming in 2 minutes.
Okay, all right, of course.
So thank you all for today.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
everybody,
Amin.
UKM.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And everybody.
Okay,
Yeah,
bye. Thank you very
all.
much. Bye.
See you soon.
Email me. Thank you,
Thank you,
Ani.
Prof.
Yeah, thank